Ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention?
Great Scott! There's no crying in baseball!
You better hold on tight, Spider Monkey.
This is where the fun begins.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. That's right, we're ranking Gladiator II. Gladiator II is a 2024 epic historical action film that takes place 16 years after the previous movie, Gladiator. Lucius, the son of Maximus, rises from slavery as a gladiator in the Colosseum, learning about who he is and what destiny awaits him. Now, this movie got some praise and some not. I am on the side of not very much praise. I did not enjoy this movie as much as I wanted to, but let's get into it with the 10 essential aspects of a movie. First is plot. Does the movie follow a comprehensive story arc and is plausible within the world that has been created? One thing I like to harp on when it comes to sequels of movies is, why did you make this movie? No one can stand to watch a movie that was made purely for the money of it. You have to have a good reason, and I did not feel that this movie had a good reason to be made. Now, a Gladiator 2 could be interesting, but I just thought the plot of this movie was far too similar to the plot of the previous movie. I felt there was a lot of aspects to this movie that were relying on the previous one. The previous movie is obviously a very famous movie. It is a very well done movie that people enjoy, and you're trying to piggyback off of that previous story to get another story that is just as interesting. However, we've already seen this one. We've already seen it done well. That's what I felt like watching this movie. It pretty much follows almost verbatim the type of story arc that is done in the first movie, just not as well. And to me, that was very disappointed. This movie really did feel like it was just made because they wanted to make more money, not because they had a really interesting story to tell. Second is attraction. Does the movie have an interesting premise with a high entertainment value? Personally, I don't really think so. Just watch the original Gladiator. If you are interested in this time period, if you're interested in Gladiator and you want to watch a good story on it, just watch the original. There's no real reason to watch this one. The only thing that I felt was different about this movie was they took the action and turned it up a notch. There's more action, and I felt like the action was on a higher scale. So if you enjoy a movie with more action and less storytelling, less in-depth storytelling, then you're going to like this movie. But if you want a better overall movie, then just go watch the original Gladiator. Third is theme. What message or truth is the movie trying to convey? The message I kind of found in this movie was that every character at some point was battling with, should I do what I want to do for my own selfish reasons, or should I do the thing that I know is probably going to be better for the good of the people or the city or the country? Now, every character in this movie pretty much battled with that question, and there's pretty much a character that chooses any angle you can think of with that question. And I thought they did an interesting job with that. I thought it was a theme that carried throughout the movie, and it helped to develop the characters, and it helped for you to find your opinion on those characters based on how they answered that question. Fourth is dialogue. Is there a real feel to the conversations? Yes, I felt the conversations did feel real, and I thought they were interesting for the most parts. I would say Denzel Washington's character was the one that had the most interesting conversations. However, I felt that the movie, again, relied too much on the previous movie. There's a lot of context in here about Maximus and his story, which I don't think was needed. I was interested in this character's story. I've already seen Maximus's. So I felt a lot of the conversations had to deal with the previous movie, but not for good reasons. I would have liked to have seen them put more content into it that was new, and had to do with the situation at hand. Fifth is acting. Are the characters convincing? Now, the acting is good. There's no bad acting in this movie. However, there's nobody that really stood out. I do think a combination of good acting and interesting characters was Joseph Quinn and Fred Hetchinger hopefully I said that right. They play the twin emperors in this movie, and though these characters are kind of terribly written because they have no context, they just kind of appear and you have no idea how they got here and why they're there. But more or less, they were my favorite characters. I mean, I enjoyed when they were on screen. I thought they were funny. I thought they felt like they had the most personality out of everybody in this movie, and they made me laugh and they made me angry. They made me feel more emotion than anybody else did in this entire movie. So I really enjoyed their acting. 6 is cinematography. Is there a creative use of lighting, setting, and wardrobe to convey emotion? Now, the action in this movie was good. I thought as cinematography goes, the setting is not any different than the first one. Obviously, it takes place in the Coliseum most of the time. But they did turn it up a notch. They did add more animals. There's a lot more action going on. There's more animals. They actually had a ship fighting scene, which I thought was interesting. There's just a lot more action that I can appreciate, and I thought was done well to make the Coliseum feel like it was even bigger than the previous movie, that it was on a bigger scale. And I did really enjoy that. But the emotional aspect of this movie, it's just not there. The character development in this movie is really weird. It seems like they kind of cut out certain scenes in this movie that would have had some progression. There's some problems in this movie that get solved in one. They'll have a problem develop, and then in one scene, all of a sudden it's solved, and you have no idea how or why these characters have changed the way they feel. It was just kind of poorly done, and because of that, you don't really get attached to any of these characters, and you don't really care when something happens. I did not find myself feeling sad in this movie ever, and there's multiple points in which I think this movie was trying to make you sad and make you feel something. It just didn't work. I thought the character development was not done well. 7th is editing. This is all about the pace of the movie. The movie is 2 hours and 28 minutes long. It's far too long. The story was not nearly interesting enough for this movie to be 2 hours and 28 minutes long. It should have been an hour 45 kind of movie. I mean, with the development of the characters, 2 hour movie at most. 2 hours and 28 minutes was just too long for a movie that was not interesting enough. 8th is soundtrack. I thought the soundtrack of this movie was decent. It's nothing memorable. It's nothing that interesting. Honestly, I barely remember it at all. 9th is directing. Now I feel the director is in charge of the previous 8 aspects. They're the ones that have to give it their stamp of approval, put it all together, and make a really good movie. Now the director of this movie is Ridley Scott, the original director of Gladiator, and this guy, I swear, he's the most hot and cold director I have ever seen. This is his 29th movie, which is just crazy. The 29 movies that he has directed are The Duelist, Alien, Blade Runner, Legend, Someone to Watch Over Me, Black Rain, Thelma and Louise, 1492, Conquest of Paradise, White Squall, G.I. Jane, Gladiator, Hannibal, Black Hawk Down, Matchstick Men, Kingdom of Heaven, A Good Year, American Gangster, Body of Lies, Robin Hood, Prometheus, The Counselor, Exodus, Gods and Kings, The Martian, Alien Covenant, All the Money in the World, The Last Duel, House of Gucci, Napoleon, and finally Gladiator II. Now, obviously, he is an experienced director, but again, I think this guy has made some great films. I do have a video on The Martian, so go check that out if you're interested in that. But he has made a lot of good films, and he has made some films I've never heard of, and he's made some films that are just mediocre. He's all over the place. This is a movie that I feel is disappointing. It has some good aspects with that come with just being a seasoned director. I don't think this movie is just terrible, but it really did just feel like a money grab. It didn't feel inspirational. It didn't feel like he was trying to tell an entirely different story. It felt like he just wanted to tell the same story again with just a little bit of a difference, and I felt that was disappointing. I thought he could have done much better. I would have rather seen him make a completely different movie than a sequel to Gladiator. 10th is Time. Will it stand the test of time? Personally, I do not think it will stand the test of time at all, mainly just because it's a sequel. The original will overshadow this movie every single time. I think if somebody's asking, oh, which Gladiator should I watch, pretty much everybody's going to say, oh, just watch the first one. The second one's not that good. I don't think it'll stand the test of time. I don't know how many people would truly want to watch this movie again. I know that I am not one of them. Now for the review section. Rotten Tomatoes critics gives it a 71. The audience gives it an 83. And IMDb gives it a 69. I am more in line with the 69 to 71. I am probably a little higher, maybe more like a 75, somewhere around there. But honestly, the plot of this movie is not that good, and that is a huge knock for the movie. I mean, it is the structure in which this movie is laid on. It's the story you're watching, and it just pretty much rips off the first movie and doesn't even do it as well as the first movie does. But compared to every movie that's ever been made, it doesn't have these terrible, huge mistakes. It does have decent acting. The action is good. As far as cinematography, it looks good. The setting is interesting. But as far as the standards go, it already set a standard with the first Gladiator, and this one is just a worse version of it. I would put it more in that 75 range. Finally, for the rankings. For the year of 2024, out of 26 total movies on the entertainment side, it is going to be 18th, just below Ghostbusters, Frozen Empire, and above Ungentlemanly Warfare. Now, I have it below Ghostbusters. It's really in the section of movies that I will never watch again, but I have it below Ghostbusters because Ghostbusters is a decent movie. It has some big plot problems that made it boring. However, it's still in that Ghostbusters universe. It still has a feel of that Ghostbusters. It's in that world. It has the throwbacks. It has the characters in it. So it's something. I enjoyed the previous Ghostbusters, and I just think I would prefer to watch Ghostbusters. Frozen Empire. It's an easier watch than Gladiator as well. I think I would easily want to watch that movie before I watch Gladiator II. Now, I do have it above Ungentlemanly Warfare. That is a movie that I just did not enjoy that much. I at least enjoy the concept of Gladiator II a little bit more than Ungentlemanly Warfare. And though they both have their problems, if I had to choose one to exist, I would probably choose Gladiator II before Ungentlemanly Warfare. Now, cinematically, out of 26 total movies, I have it 16th, just below The Fall Guy and above It Ends With Us. It has plot problems, nothing huge, but big enough that it just didn't feel unique, and I have to knock it down for that because you could just watch Gladiator and be much more satisfied, and it's much more cinematic. It has much better character development than this movie, and I have it below The Fall Guy for those reasons, because The Fall Guy is not a movie that was made for much cinematography other than just a thank you to all the stuntmen out there, but really it's an entertainment movie, but it does everything well. There's not many complaints I have about that movie at all. It just wasn't made for cinematography. It was made more for entertainment. Gladiator 2 I do have problems with, and so that's why I have to put it below The Fall Guy. I do have it above It Ends With Us because It Ends With Us is a movie that had pretty much not much entertainment and was really right in on the cinematography and just didn't do cinematography that well. It really dropped the ball on emotion, I felt, and really dropped the ball on a message that it was going for that it just kind of didn't hit at all. Gladiator 2 does have some interesting cinematic aspects to it. The world is interesting. The characters are interesting, though it could have been done better. They still do a decent job. The conversations are good. Denzel Washington's character is very interesting. It just has some aspects that I feel represent cinema better than It Ends With Us, who was going for something specific and just kind of failed on it, where Gladiator 2 has small aspects to save it. Now, for the decade of the 2020s, out of 28 total movies on the entertainment side, it's going to be 19th, again, just below Ghostbusters Frozen Empire and above Ungentlemanly Warfare. Now, out of 28 total movies on the cinematic side, I have it 17th, just below The Fall Guy and above It Ends With Us. Again, it's between those movies for the exact same reason as before. Now, all time, out of 40 total movies on the entertainment side, it's going to be 30th, just below Ghostbusters Frozen Empire and above Ungentlemanly Warfare. Again, it is between those movies for the exact same reason as before. Cinematically, out of 40 total movies, it is going to be 26th, just below Treasure Island from 1990 and above Step Brothers. I have it below Treasure Island. Treasure Island was a longer movie, but there's no real plot problems with it. It doesn't have anything that I felt was detrimental. It doesn't do cinematically, it doesn't do anything great, especially emotionally, but it hits on the other aspects. Gladiator 2 is very similar. These movies aren't very far off, but I would just say that Treasure Island is better put together. The character development through that movie is easy to understand, though it's nothing dramatic. The characters, they go through their problems in a way that makes sense, where Gladiator 2, they don't. There's parts of this movie where problems get resolved and you have no idea why. There's chunks of this movie that feel like they are missing, and because Treasure Island is a little bit better put together, a little smoother, I have to give it the upper hand over Gladiator 2. Now, I do have it above Step Brothers because Step Brothers is a good entertainment movie, but it does absolutely nothing cinematically. It tries at the end to do a little bit, but it pretty much doesn't do anything cinematically. Gladiator 2 does do some stuff cinematically. It is very interesting to look at. The setting, the characters, all that is very interesting, and so it does represent cinema better as an art form because it is trying to do some of those things and hits on some of them, where Step Brothers wasn't trying at all. It's just a really well put together entertainment movie. That's all I have for Gladiator 2. I was honestly very disappointed. Were you disappointed in this movie? Let me know your opinion down below. I love to hear when you guys tell me how you felt about a movie. That's the whole reason I made this channel, was to interact with you guys and hear other people who love movies and hear why they may have loved it or why they didn't like it either. And you may change my opinion with your own opinion. So even if you don't comment much, please leave a comment down below. Tell me at least what you thought about the movie, or what you would rank it out of 100 or 10. If you want to watch somebody who does a very similar format to mine, where he ranks it based on the same year, decade, and all time, then go check out my best friend Bosso Movie Reviews. He has a video on Gladiator 2 already, and he felt very differently. He usually enjoys the entertainment aspects of the movie more than I do. I enjoy the cinematic aspects a little bit more, and he liked this movie a lot more than I did. His list is completely different, so go make sure to check him out if you're interested. Otherwise, comment the movie that you want me to watch next. Make sure you subscribe so that you can see me make a video on that movie. But otherwise, I'm Mr. Majoritarian. Stay classy, San Diego.